known today as the Esquimalt and the Songhees First Nations, and that the connections to these lands continue to these days. Also want to note that we do live stream and record these meetings, so if you're speaking, you'll be heard at home and be on the record. We are calling the open portion of this meeting to order. First up, we have minutes and reports. So the first up is January 28th, 2019 minutes.
Move approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any changes, corrections? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you. Next, we have minutes of Special Committee of the Whole, January 24th and January, Committee of the Whole, January 24th and 29th. We can do these together, I think, can we? Move them together.
Move acceptance.
Your Worship, yes, you can.
Move approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any changes, corrections? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Just thank staff for those. Those were difficult meetings to capture all of the content and all the communication. So I do appreciate those as the record of those meetings. Moving on to item number 4, the mayor's remarks. I don't have a lot. I just want to express my appreciation to all of the crews that worked through the day and through the night clearing snow around the community. It's a lot of snow. One of the largest snowfalls we've had in recorded history around here. So, and for the most part, we survived it fairly well. So I just want to thank the staff for the hard work that they did on that. And I'll just also point out that I had a meeting with the South Island Prosperity Project executive, and there's a bunch of work going on right now for the submission of the for the $10 million federal grant for that project. So that's a lot of exciting stuff going on, and there'll be some announcements coming up in your future. Next up is, and I try to keep my mayor's remarks fairly short for everybody's benefit, public participation period. This is a period where anybody who wants to address council on any issue related to the municipality can come forward and just, you have up to 3 minutes to say, talk to us about anything. And you're also, but we have a total of 20 minutes allocated under our procedures bylaw to all members to come forward. Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to come and speak to council about anything? Yeah, please come forward. And just procedurally, we just need you to say your name and municipality of residence. And if you could spell your name on the piece of paper there, that way when it's in the minutes, it'll be reflected accurately.
Hi there, my name is Michael Yakubowicz. I'm here not because I want to be, but because I have to be because of something that's happening in my neighborhood. I just wanted to ask each of the councillors, I sent an email about the Willows portables, and I was wondering if everybody got that. That would save me a lot of time. Okay. New information to what I sent you is very important. What has happened is that I just learned today that this consultation with School District 61 is mute. And to say that it's a done deal would not be understated. On January 7th, the building permits for the portables that are going in for the daycare at Willow School, taking away the green space that's there, have already gone to the building department and are in the process of almost being approved. And what I'm asking tonight is the council to delay that approval for a number of reasons. Number one is the lack of consultation. We were promised by the school district that there would be adequate consultation. This did not happen when the school went through. I've been part of the school and part of the PAC for 15 years, and I've lived in the house that I'm presently in for going on 25 years. So I have a vested interest with the school because the field that they are taking away from us, the PAC put in many hours and lunch hours and after school time for $50,000 to make that a first-class soccer field. So to have portables put on it were really upsetting, and the only time we heard about it as neighbors and residents of Oak Bay was when they were going up. The building and planning had already approved it long before. There's no consultation, and only after much trying with the school district, they added 7 school spots. To help you out with the severity of this problem is that area around Willow School. I just really, really want you to go there and spend a half an hour in the morning.
Just to warn
and
you,
a half
about
an hour.
15 seconds left, so just...
Oh, I didn't know
yes,
that.
3
Okay,
minutes.
so the consultation wasn't done with the school district. The traffic is horrible and needs to be looked at and needs to be studied before the building permits can be approved. There, as far as consultation goes, a sign went up at the PAC for the only meeting of consultation was a 17 by 34 thing. If you have 20 minutes, if there's another spot, I will come back and finish that. I'm sorry.
If you just make a quick point of what your ask is.
Okay,
maybe we can-
it's in my notes, and if you want to go through the notes, but specifically of the 27 spaces, I'm asking council to do what they've done for the other schools in the district, and this is the largest elementary, 600 students. There's no pickup, there's no drop-off. The 2 side streets where everybody uses are 1-lane streets. It's inadequate. There needs to be a parking study before it's approved. So I really appreciate that, and that they're planning 103 students, yet there's only spaces for 40. So they're planning for more of these. So thank you very much for your time, and if there is a spot, I have 2 points. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to come forward? Please come forward. And at the end of this period, I'll go back and we can ask questions of staff as well. But I want to use up our 20 minutes for people to give their words. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening to the Mayor, Council, and everybody else in here. My name is Catherine Denny, and I live at 1420 Beach Drive. I wish to voice my objection to the proposed 5-foot Octavina sculpture to be located on a rock in Oak Bay along the scenic drive, which is famous and valued already. The most important point that I wish to make is that this rock is already occupied and has been for generations. Seabirds for preening, fishing, and warming themselves, and harbor seals and river otters to haul out and for nursing their young. It is well used, and the wildlife viewing is enjoyed by many residents and visitors. Ms. Adams has said that there is room for both sculpture and wildlife, but I disagree. This rock goes just beneath the high water mark, leaving little room for both. A sculpture would interfere greatly. There is nothing I or a great many others wish to see other than the natural wildlife. Nature cannot be improved upon in this case. I'm an art supporter. I have my degree in history of art from UVic and believe art adds to our life in many ways. Barbara Adams and her committee have worked hard, and I commend them for starting the Arts Alive program. I do, however, fundamentally disagree with the pace of choosing so many permanent public art installations over a short time span. I feel we should leave room for successive generations to leave their own artistic choices from a variety of future artists. That would allow for diversity in theme as well as size and value. The Octavina sculptor was chosen after 32 submissions. The winner is already represented by several works, including the acorns in front of our municipal hall. Art is subjective and in the eye of the beholder. It is bound to cause some controversy in its choice of subject matter. I believe the Octavina subject matter is weak and does not speak to the efforts of many to downplay the colonization themes and focus on our valued First Nation stories. Many tonight will speak on other issues around this sculpture, such as potential parking issues, maintenance access via boat, storm damage from washed up tonnage of boats and logs, the lack of public awareness and input surrounding the whole process, etc. While a donation of $50,000 by a single donor is very generous, I believe that we must consider all the points and not end up with a permanent piece of art depicting the wrong subject matter in a very wrong location. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Denny. Is there anybody else who wishes to come forward? Please come forward.
Your Worship and Councilors, my name is Terry Fenton, and I also live at 1420 Beach Drive. I want to confirm what Ms. Denny said. I agree with her completely, and I'm totally in support of her point of view. I want to give you some idea of my own experience. I was an art museum director in Edmonton and Saskatoon for most of my career. I've been deeply involved in sculpture, public sculpture placement in those two cities and also in England. And I think that this particular location is very inappropriate. That beautiful rock, which has been there for centuries perhaps, is one of the really unique rocks in the Victoria area. There's another one in Gonzales Bay, which is also very unusual. I think it would be a desecration to put a sculpture on it. I also think that the sculpture proposed is, I've seen them maquette, but a large 5-foot sculpture on top of that rock would be also very inappropriate. And secondly, and finally, the location is a very disturbed and dangerous location. As you know, there are 2 boats already wrecked in the last storm. If one of those hits a sculpture in that rock, that's going to be a major undertaking to repair it. I just think it's not a pedestal. It's a beautiful rock that should be just left as it is. And finally, a little word about whimsy, which has been noted. This is a whimsical sculpture proposed. Whimsy is very short-lived. It's okay for a year, but not for a lifetime. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Fenton. I'll just ask people as well to make sure you write down your name if at all possible, so we have the spelling. Welcome.
Hi, my name is David Anderson. I live in Beach Drive as well. This is to stress my opposition to the Octavina sculpture on the rocks in Oak Bay. We see all the time birds and animals using the rocks for resting or hauling out. The bay itself doesn't need anything to get in the way of its natural beauty. From the shore to Mount Baker, it defines Oak Bay. When I first saw the mermaid, the furthest thing in my mind was Oak Bay. It was embarrassing. It's wonderful that an elderly gentleman has donated his money, but this is not a place for a statue to make people smile, as Barb Adams stated. Other issues include the ocean's winter storms and potential traffic congestions. I attended the meeting at the Rudyard Kipling with the artist and Barb Adams. Speaking to people after the presentation, I realized that I was not alone in my disapproval of this venture. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Is there anyone else who wishes to come forward and speak to us? Welcome.
My name is Colin Bell. I live at 1476 Beach Drive in Oak Bay. I fully support the absence of the sea lower sculpture in the sheltered bay in the 1400 block of Beach Drive. This is a block of high-density housing with 4 adjacent co-op and condo buildings. The recent storm, as someone noted, left 2 beached boats against the rocks in this bay. We witnessed the traffic congestion from cars parked on both sides of Beach Drive so that the owners could get a closer look at these boats. There was room for only 1 lane of traffic. If we fast forward to Octavina on a rock and a tour bus stopped so that its passengers can get out and admire her, we will have the same sort of congestion with other cars parked on both sides of the street to see what tourist attraction caused the bus to stop. This is clearly not the best location for Octavina. If she were on land in a park, like Willows Park, for example, children could play around her, touch her, etc.
Thank you, Mr. Bell.
Hi.
Welcome. Good evening.
I'm Carol Ann Moore, and I also live on Beach Drive. Surprise, surprise, surprise. I sent all of you guys an email earlier stating my objections to the Octavina. And what hasn't been brought up is that this is a sea lore project. It's no lore. It's brand new. It's fantasy. It's made up. If we're going to have a statue, if we're going to be pushed to have this statue, then it should represent something. And this doesn't represent anything. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Does anybody else wish to come forward and welcome?
Mayor and Council, my name is Geraldine Pete. I also live on Beach Drive, and I did send you a letter, which I'll read very quickly here for everyone's information. Firstly, I acknowledge the generosity of the donor who wants to leave us a lasting legacy, and also the hard work of the Arts Alive Committee and the sculptor. I'm opposed to this proposal for the following reasons. Nature. The rocks chosen in the Bay of Oakway for the base of the sculpture are constantly used by native birds and animals. Natural beauty. The bay is an iconic picture postcard perfect scene which does not need a foreground focal point. It already has layers of interest from the glaciated rocks in the foreground to distant Mount Baker. Content of the sculpture, it's a made-up fantasy which has no grounding in true Oakway lore. And traffic, as other people have stated, the proposed area's roadway is choked with parked cars several times a day on the Glen Lyon School, Haynes Park side of the bay, and adding tourists to this point will be problematic. But recently, just over the last weekend, as you can see by the trimaran and the sailboat up on the rocks, I think that the committee has underestimated the power of the ocean. Storms have thrown up logs all along here in the last 3 weeks, and now we have the big boats up on the rocks in the area of the proposed to put the sculpture. So please look for a different site which needs an artistic focal point for this sculpture. Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't quite get your last name. Could you?
Oh, it's Pete, and I've written it down.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else from the audience who wishes to come and speak to us tonight on any subject related to Oak Bay? We've got schools and sculpture so far. Nothing else? Anything else? Anyone else? Okay, with that, we'll close the public participation period. I did want to bring back to... yeah, we can allow us. You wanted to come back up again for...
I'll be as brief as possible, but it's... Thank you very much. I do appreciate it, and I know your time is valuable. But the concerns that I'm raising are really affect the whole district, and not everybody that passes through that area during those times of day. Besides the consultation, is we're losing the green space. And that is a major thing about the area. And also that the capacity of the school is beyond its capacity now. And therefore adding 103 spaces will be more than the area can handle. And we haven't dealt with the previous situation where we have over 240 out-of-catchment parents coming. With the extra 103 coming, that will be the problem. Unfortunately, because I'm the only one here, because I'm the only one that knows that this thing is basically a done deal. I have a meeting on Friday with SD61, and I would like somebody to contact me with the district, because I would like somebody from the district to represent you folks as well as the residents. And if I could get somebody, that would be wonderful. Just something on the other point is just portables are unhealthy for our children. So I'll leave that as reference. Thank you very much.
Watch the cables there. Thank you very much. Once and a half, anyway. I'll throw this just out of curiosity now that we've closed in the public participation. I don't know if staff have any additional information to share, and certainly I'd be willing to go with you to that meeting, as Mr. Yakovich, but if there's any additional information available tonight or if it's something we can talk about offline.
Yeah.
I'll just, Mr. Anderson, I'm not putting on the spot here if you know.
No, Your Worship, I just should probably note that the school district is conducting this initiative. They are involved in consultation with the neighborhood. They did, as noted, submit a building permit application to the district. That's an active application that we have, but it's really the school district that needs to come forward and continue the process associated with that. Our understanding is that they're in a consultation process respecting the proposal for portables on this site, and that's where that rests from our perspective.
I don't know if you can answer this question or not, but those portables as they go on there with the zoning that's on the site currently, does those would not normally come through any kind of rezoning or council related process? Would they're really at a staff level? Is that accurate?
That's correct. It's a building permit application. We do review our district bylaws as part of that building permit review process. Those bylaws obviously council approves. Zoning bylaws, parking facility bylaws are engaged, but it's really the application of those bylaws to the building permit review that's undertaken, and it's, as you notice, it is a staff review process.
Okay, thank you very much. So we can talk about some more of that offline. Thank you, everybody who came forward to speak to us. This is that information will be considered by all of council. Currently, we're expecting the CLOR discussion to come onto the committee of the whole next week, next Tuesday, but the agenda is still to be 100% finalized, but that's the plan at this point. So thank you for that. I'm going to move on to the next item here, which is the Oakway Tourism presentation. There's a representation from Oakway Tourism here. Welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mayor Murdoch and councillors. Oh, I go here. Do I need to write my name? Yes. This is the public participation period.
You don't actually have to.
I don't have to write.
Just introduce yourself to
I'm
so
on
the audience knows who
okay,
you are.
Sorry, my name's Duncan Murphy. I am the owner of the Oakway Guest House and the vice chair of the Oakway Tourism Committee, and I'm here tonight to present the Oakway Tourism 2019 budget and strategic plan. And I have a show somewhere, don't I? So I'm not quite sure how this. Okay. Oh, sorry about this. Okay, so I can just briefly introduce our committee. So we have 9 members who include Michelle Lesage, who needs no introduction. She's the owner of the she's the general manager of the Oakway Beach Hotel. We have a number of other members who you see there, including, I'm sure you're familiar with most of these people. I'm quite new to this area. Our council liaisons are Hazel Karen Green and Hazel Braithwaite, and last year we had Tom Croft. Okay, our direction this year is to, I've gone past the thing, so I'd like to talk a little bit about how the funding, where the funding comes from for the Oakway Tourism Committee. There is a 2% tax levied on visitors to the area who stay in the accommodation sectors, which is the beach hotel and the guest house. It's the municipal regional district tax, and it is sometimes known as the tourist tax. That money is paid to the city, the council or the municipality, and then claimed back by the Oakway Tourism Committee, who then put together a plan to spend it back into tourism funding. The the intent of this is to market tourism, not to put on events, but to market our existing attributes. So our overall sort of direction is to bring more people into Oak Bay by marketing our distinct attributes, which are this delightful, accessible, calm, beautiful, unique, and accessible to the town district. This direction, we did actually have a planning day, which was facilitated by Rob Gioloretto, who was a former CEO of Tourism Victoria, and we had a strategy session to go through the the mission and the goals and objectives, which I'm just going to go on to. The main goals and objectives, as I already said, are to bring more visitors in here, to connect with the locals. This is a key trend now in tourism. The idea that people want authentic experiences and they want to connect with real people and the boutiques, kind of the shops and businesses that we have in Oak Bay. Okay, our main strategies are to optimize the digital presence. We don't need to talk too much about that. We have a great website that we put together last year. You all probably know how important social media is these days. Media fan tours is another key trend where we bring in influencers and travel writers. We hosted several of these last year. They come in, experience it themselves, and write their unbiased, well, they're slightly biased opinions, and that goes out to a wide audience. We are looking to Destination Greater Victoria obviously spends millions of dollars bringing people into Victoria, so we don't need to do all that again. We just need to get them into Oak Bay so we can ride on the back of some of their strategies as well. We're looking to create new video assets and graphics, and we're not forgetting the traditional media, print publications and supplements to magazines and adverts in other areas. Our target markets are mainly, most of the people who come in here are from BC, Vancouver Island, and further afield, Alberta, Washington State. That's actually probably 60% coming from the island and from Vancouver, and the other areas are smaller, US, UK, Europe, much smaller, but more so in the summer. And the average length of stay is 2 to 3 days. So this would be an example of one of the travel writers who came in. She came from Air North, which is Yukon's airline. They're flying into Victoria. She stayed for a couple of days in both of the accommodation outlets, and she got a tour of the village, and she experienced some of the food and everything Oak Bay has to offer. And so she goes away and writes this thing, and I'll just give you a quick taste of this. So she says, if you're looking for a place to relax, gaze out at the ocean, indulge in a delicious meal, wander through art galleries and explore flower-lined streets, then this is the spot to land. It is quaint and easygoing, yet bursting with activities and spectacular views, so on and so forth. So they are unique attributes. And there are a number of other ones. Some of the highlights there is, and I think they're doing it again this year, there's couples renewing their wedding vows, and this goes out in Seattle on the radio, and it gets quite a lot of airtime, and then they fly them in here and they get a package at the beach hotel and quite a lot of media coverage. There's a number there, I'll let you click through those yourselves. So some of the stakeholder engagement, the stakeholders being the municipality, of course, Oak Bay Tourism, local businesses, residents, community organisations, Destination Greater Victoria, Victoria Guest Services Networks, and the visitors themselves. We've hosted a mixer, We've hosted familiarization tours of the area. We've attended their trade shows, and we've sponsored some of their local art that is so popular. And the car show, and we've come out with new maps and which highlight all of the activities there are to do in Oakway. These are an example of some of the print ads and brochures. The one on the left goes out with, it's called Discover magazine, and it goes out with the Times Colonist. It has a very wide distribution. The one top center is the writing contest, which was hosted on the website. It was very popular. There were a lot of entries. There was a Oakwood Tourism mixer at the marina, and the one bottom right is the map that came out pinpointing all the areas and color-coded places to eat and art galleries and so on and so forth, and includes walking tours, heritage, I think, walks. We did some work with the Heritage Committee as well. So the large part of the budget last year was proportioned to marketing, because that's the cut and thrust of the reason for the committee. It would be the same this year. This year we are proposing to hire a professional marketing company, a full-service marketing agency to do all of the print media and a lot of the activities and marketing for us. The reason for this was that last year there was a pie chart with about a lot of different activities, a lot of small, time-consuming activities involving a lot of ambassadors, coordinators, and so on and so forth. So we feel that this would be a better and more efficient use of the funding. So we approached 3 full-service marketing agencies who came and gave presentations, and the committee selected Hothouse Marketing / H2 Digital, who already they are very active in tourism. They're very experienced. They do a lot of work within Oakway as well. I think they work with the marina, they work with the beach hotel, and they are, I think anything tourism on the island, they're involved with it. So that was the one that we unanimously decided if that proposal is to go ahead. The budget carry forward from last year is $65,000. The total actually from the total projected from the MRDT this year is $152,000, and the surplus from last year is $65,000, giving us a total revenue of $217,000. And we'd propose to spend $151,000 on marketing, keeping back some for destination management, destination and product experience. So that would be things like the ambassador program and enhancing people's visits to Oakway, and a small amount back for visitor services. That's the VGSN fan tours and so on and things like that. And then there's a small contingency on top of that. So I think that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy.
Yes.
And just for clarification, I have in my notes that this is a motion to receive. In past years, we have approved the budget, so this is just a receiving of the information. We don't have to go through an approval process. Is that correct?
Your worship, that is correct.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Are there any questions, Mr. Murphy? I'll go to Councillor Braithwaite first. She's slightly attached to it. And
Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation, Mr. Murphy. It's fabulous to see the great work that you guys do within the community. I think that obviously the overall goal of the Tourism Committee is to get heads in beds and bring those people to our community. But the relationship that you have with many different aspects within our community. Like, for example, the Business Improvement Association is very key, because I think when you bring people into the community, you're then allowing those people to go out into, like for example, on Oak Bay Avenue and deal with a lot of our businesses, and so you're really bringing a lot of money into the community to help those businesses. So thank you for that. My question is that you've been branded so well over the past few years with the bicycle and the little cart that sits usually outside in front here. I'm wondering if you have any plans within the budget to augment that in any way, or if you're just going to continue with the bike and the stand.
Well, I think that was one of the key points that we made with the three companies that presented to us. Branding was quite was quite high on the agenda, because we have a number of different sort of publications. They didn't really tie together, so they would be looking at that. And in fact, that was part of their proposal. All of them proposed, so that would be high up on the agenda for some of the spend.
Thank you. And then the last comment I'll make is I noticed that you had up there the 30 hours in Oak Bay or whatever it was, and a lot of people are now doing staycations, and I think that's one of the smartest things ever. I know people that I work with and all over Victoria that will come to Oak Bay just to do their staycation, and they have such a great time. So thank you. Thanks for everything.
Yeah. I would like to have a staycation in the Oak Bay Beach Hotel someday.
You can come to my house.
Councillor Day and then Councillor Green.
Thank you very much for this, Mr. Murphy, and thank you to your committee and our liaisons for all the work you're doing. It's great work. The ads and the photos and the brochures are really good, and they showcase our community really nicely. I appreciate that. So just a couple things is, given the objective is partly, as Councillor Braithwaite, what did you say, heads and beds? That's pretty good. Okay, so that one of the things I was wondering is, do you track the revenues coming in from the two places that do heads and beds? Like, one would expect that with the good work that you're doing, that there might be some trending upward of revenues for that. So is that part of the work that happens here?
Well, we don't really need to track it, because it's just 2% of the total revenue, but it is trending.
Oh, that's right. It all goes. Yeah. It is what it is. Okay, that's right.
But it is trending upwards.
That's right.
Definitely. I think this year for both hotels was
fair enough.
Much stronger than last year.
Yeah. It kind of self-regulates itself. Yeah. I got it. The other point is, in your objectives, it talks about nurturing more positive connectivity between visitors and our locals. And I'm sure you've heard this, and I know it's not quite in your jurisdiction, but I just thought I'd say it because the number of times I'm hearing people make this complaint seems to increase. And it's those buses that are spewing out I don't know if it's diesel or whatever it is, but it's
the hop-on, hop-off bus.
Yeah, it's really, I don't know if it's getting worse. It feels like it is to me, but I don't know. But it really is a bother. I think that's an understatement to a lot of people, and I don't think it works towards that objective in terms of nurturing that relationship between visitors. And I do know it's out of your jurisdiction, but because you guys are in the business, if there's any opportunities to accelerate those electric buses coming into the community, I'd really appreciate that you might do that advocacy. Yeah. So I thought I'd just mention that.
I do know that actually this came up recently, that the operators of the hop-on hop-off Grey Line used to run those big old London buses, and they've stopped. They've discontinued those, and they are moving towards more more environmentally friendly and even electric. They're refitting some of those. Yeah. So they're all off the road. So
but the double-deckers still come into the community.
Yeah, I'm not sure of all of the things that come through, but it'd definitely be something we could advocate against, I guess.
I appreciate if there's ever any option. Just one other small thing. In one of your brochures that Carol Patterson did, 5 reasons you want to visit this in Victoria. There's some really nice material there, but one of them has to do with the wild seals down at the
yes.
And it's talking about feeding them,
Yes,
and I think they stopped that.
They have stopped that.
Okay,
yes,
I
yes.
just thought because it's still
Yes,
in the literature
that's,
there.
That's
Okay.
We're trying to pull that out of
Okay.
all of our
Okay.
advertising. Yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you again for all the good work you're doing.
We got to keep our police busy, just arresting people in the
Yes.
front of those things. Councillor Green, then Councillor Zelka.
Thank you very much, Mr. Murphy, and I really enjoyed attending my first meeting last Thursday with the committee. It was terrific. We also talked about the possibility of your joining the Oakway Tourism Committee, joining the Southern Vancouver Island Film Commission.
Oh, yes.
The membership is only $25 a year. We thought that would be a good connection between the Tourism Committee and the Film Commission. As well, I'm really interested in the Girls' Secret Getaway Weekend. Maybe we could work out something later. No, I don't mean it that way. What I meant was actually, you're going to Hazel's house, so it doesn't matter.
I might add that Michelle put this show together, so
we'll talk to Michelle.
Need to ask Michelle about that one. Yeah.
But what I wanted to say was, I think I was really impressed with the level of commitment from all the committee members that I met last Thursday, and really appreciated the venue as well. And I also know you have a connection to the Heritage Commission, which is a really good connection, and the guest house is a heritage.
Yes, it is.
A heritage asset. So thank you very much, and I look forward to working with all of you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Councillor Zelka.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to our esteemed guest. Thank you, Mr. Murphy, for your wonderful presentation. When you swap out the thing around feeding the seals, maybe you could swap in having a fire on the beach, since that's now legal in Oakwood.
Is it? Oh,
yes.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Yes.
I don't know about sleeping on the beach,
I know,
but certain fires are now allowed.
One of our committee members has been pushing for that. I think Steve Earnshaw, who
the fire chief can
Victoria.
fill you in on the latest. Yeah. But what I did want to ask you about is this general issue of short-term rentals. Which is sort of an up-and-coming source of heads in beds. Yes. I don't know whether the Oakwood Tourism has a position on this in terms of what they would like to see within Oakwood, but I do know that the the provincial government recently came up with a new tax where they're now going to tax, let's see, what do they say here, 8%. The provincial tax plus a 3% hotel tax for local government. Since you're funded through this MDRT tax, I don't know, is there a relationship between those two? Do you know anything? Or maybe this question is more for finance or possibly buildings and planning.
I think all I know about it is that it's not an item on our agenda very often because they don't really compete with the Oakway Beach Hotel, which is the large part of the revenue. But I do understand that if they become legal, they would have to contribute to the MRDT funding, and as long as and the other taxes, just like anyone else. So.
A brief follow-up. Just wondering, I understand, and I want to confirm through the chair that short-term rentals still are illegal in Oakwood. However, if some do slip under the radar and they end up paying this tax through the province, and the province sends it to us, and we send it to the tourism, or however the money gets there, is that a problem? Have we somehow, through the back door, made legal something that's currently illegal by sort of condoning it? I just wanted to ask whether that's possible.
I'll turn to Mr. Jones on that one. He may have an answer.
Your Worship, none of that revenue from the province, if they get it, comes to the district.
Thank you. Councillor Patterson?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Murphy. Your committee does a fabulous job, and we really all enjoy seeing everything around that they're doing around Oakway and seeing how much the tourists enjoy it. I noticed that you only present 1 year here, and the surplus carry forward from 2018 was $65,000, which was almost 30% of your budget, and that comes back to the room night questions, I guess, that came up, because when I saw this, I thought, does that mean that there was higher room nights last year and more collected, as compared to what is being budgeted this year, or some other reason for the larger surplus carry forward from 2018.
Yeah, I think that would definitely be part of it, that the revenue was, I think this was a record-breaking year for all of the tourist sector in Victoria or BC or the whole area, so there would have been a higher revenue than expected. Really, to be perfectly honest with you, I'm not quite sure why it wasn't spent, because we'd have to ask Brian, the treasurer. But we did have a coordinator who was involved in that, and towards the end of last year, things went a little bit off the rails, so that might have been part of the reason. I'm not perfectly sure.
Thank you. I need a motion to receive.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? I actually have one question.
Yes.
First of all, thank you for all the work that gets done. It really is. I know it's a small group by regional standards, but it does an awful lot of amazing work on marketing pieces. The question I had is, has there been any discussion at that board around involvement? There's a prior organization is now sort of morphed under the sports tourism for Destination Greater Victoria. Has there been any discussion at the Oakway tourism to look at that model or participate in that sports tourism piece?
I have. It hasn't appeared on our agenda, but it's definitely something we should be looking at. Yeah, because it's on our radar. Actually, now you mention it, I know that's been a big. It's been Destination Greater Victoria that's been bringing that in, and this is exactly the kind of initiative. This is why we say we're going to leverage what they're doing to bring it into Oak Bay. That's the kind of thing we would be looking at. But that's definitely something we'd put back on the agenda.
I think it's a very worthwhile. We're seeing now that there's a renewed focus on that. We're seeing quite a few applications for some of these sporting events, and obviously those are ones that bring significant people into town and stay at hotels.
There is one coming in now. I remember. Yeah, there's one coming in, but it's something like 2021, and it's all the schools.
It's the 2020. It's the Francophone.
Yes,
the Francophone games.
The Francophone games, and they're going to be based in Oak Bay, I believe, in the schools, and they've already approached the accommodation providers.
So it's just something to think about in terms of that longer term piece. That's all I had to say. Okay, Councillor Braithwaite?
I think that I will say one thing, just because I know you won't. Some of the pictures that you're using in your flyers, etc., were actually taken by the mayor. So.
Oh yes, that's right. Yes.
Fancy that.
Yes.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you for your time, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you.
We're on to item number 7, which is the Police Department capital purchase request. Is anyone here? Mr. Jones, and I can speak to this as well if you wish, but go ahead.
Your Worship, I think the report speaks for itself. I'm happy to ask any questions, but you're probably more familiar than I.
Are there any questions on this item? This is sort of an odd one in that the police board had decided not to go down the path of acquiring any of the drug detecting equipment, just because it was still not yet determined in terms of court of law how usable it is. However, the federal government, wanting to get this into people's hands, has offered to pay for these devices. So as long as we order it before end of March. So a decision was made to then go ahead and do this, since there was zero cost to the municipality. Efficacy still to be determined, but zero cost to the municipality. So that's the ask here in front of us.
I'll move the recommendation.
I'll second.
Yeah, Councillor Ney and then Councillor Zelka.
Quick question to the mayor. Do you know, because you're the chair of the police board, right? So I know this is a request for equipment, but is there any education that goes around this as well? I'm just curious.
For you, how to use the equipment, etc.
More about to the public, like about drug impairment regarding it's for marijuana, wasn't it? For drug, it was for detection of cannabis, isn't that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
So I was just wondering if people, or like, I guess that would be a provincial thing, wouldn't it? The education, or are they doing any education around? Or there?
So the Oakwood Police doesn't have any budget in terms of public education. This is really a potential enforcement tool for them for the impaired driving piece. So this is there's no additional funding available for additional education. But you're right, it would be primarily federal and provincial that would be leading that. Councillor Zelka?
Thank you, Chair. A question to someone in the staff, maybe yourself. How does this tool work? Does it require blood? Is it saliva? Is it breathing? Just some idea of what to expect, please.
I believe it's saliva, but I could be mistaken on that one. Again, it came, so I'm more familiar with it because it came to the police board. We said, really, given that we can't prove, be sure, we decided not to fund it. The police board decided, but then this came back and they said, "We'll take it anyway," and so that's kind of the situation. But I believe it's saliva. Mr. Jones, do you recall?
That's my understanding as well, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Green, and then Councillor Patterson.
Just to follow up, Councillor Nay's question around public education, if there are materials through you, Chair, to our CAO, if there are educational materials from the province and or the federal government, it might behoove us to carry them, at the hall so they're available. You know how we have little brochures and things out front. Perhaps that would be something we could provide if possible. That would be a small role in the education piece, but maybe useful.
I think we'll just take that as a note.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I will bring that to the attention of Andy. So thank you.
Thank you.
And just to remind everybody, it's illegal to be impaired of any sort. So this is a mechanism for legal pieces, doesn't independent of having the machine or not. It's still illegal to be impaired and drive. Councillor Patterson.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mayor. We'll have the device. So wondering about the repercussions. What is the fine structure that? I mean, what do we do when we find, if we use the device and we find that it registers positive? What's the fine structure for driving impaired? Is it the same as alcohol?
Your Worship, that's my understanding, but we will provide that information to Council.
Again, this doesn't change any of our policies from that piece. It's just purely, do we pick up the equipment at this point? Do we have a motion on the? We do have a motion on the table. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you, everybody. We have an early approval request for traffic calming project, and I believe Mr. Haran, Director of Engineering, is here to overview this.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Our aim is to install some pedestrian-activated flashing lights at the crosswalk that's just a little north of Oakway High School at Cranmore and across Cadborough Bay Road. And the road safety program from ICBC allows us to cost share with them. So the full cost of the project is expected to be an upset cost of $15,000 with ICBC covering $12,500. So we're seeking early approval so that we can complete the project before the end of their fiscal year in the end of March.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions, Mr. Haran? Councillor Green?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Haran. Also a question just to follow up. There are a number of concerns about the crosswalk at the corner of Wilmot and Oakwood Avenue that goes across the avenue. I've seen quite a bit of conversation about how dangerous that crosswalk is. Is there any opportunity for traffic improvement at that crosswalk as well, do you know, in the future? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but just thinking down the road.
So there are a number of places throughout the district that we're keeping an eye on, and then we try to, sometimes there are areas that are known to us, and then we have longer term plans or trying to fit them in the program every year, and sometimes there are new requirements. So Wilmot at Oakwood Avenue is on our areas that we're watching and potentially looking to improve, but it's not. It's separate from this particular request.
Through you, Mayor, just quickly, it is a very dangerous intersection. I was in the intersection the other day and almost got hit. They either don't see you or they just don't stop. So, and there's a lot of traffic between the two corners. Anyway, thank you.
Councillor Ney, then
that was
Appleton?
actually the same question, but I do want to say to staff, great for citing this cost-sharing opportunity and getting that. Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Patterson, then Appleton, then Zelka.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Just wondering, where it's proposed to put in this the modifications so that we have the flashing crosswalk, which I support. I think that it's a bit of a challenge with that stretch, but that stretch of road was of course reconfigured, resurfaced last year, and the bike lanes installed. And so I'm wondering what precipitated the proposal, other than the funding being offered for this, but was it precipitated perhaps by changes that occurred by the reconfiguration of the road, or was it perhaps something that was considered when the reconfiguration was proposed and we decided to wait to see what the impact would be and do work later? Perhaps if we could get just a few comments in that respect, it would be great.
Sure. Mr. Horan, can you give us a bit of background on the process here?
Certainly, Chair. So this, the crosswalk at Cranmore, the where they relate to each other is just a physical geographic location. In fact, the idea and the discussions with ICBC about that particular crosswalk were happening even before the bike lane project was approved about a year ago. And it doesn't always happen this way, but sometimes it does. If I recall correctly, in this case, it was ICBC who had received some complaints as well and said, "Hey, district, do you want to improve that crosswalk?" And we of course said, "Yes, that's a great idea. Let's jump on that opportunity."
All right, thank you. Then I have Councillor Appleton.
Thank you. Question through you, Chair, to staff. It's a bit of an extension from what Councillor Nay and Councillor Patterson are asking, but I guess I just wanted to get a sense of what's the ongoing availability of these ICBC funds, and I'm sure that staff have it on their radar to take advantage of it when it crops up, but I'm just curious as to, is this done, as you just mentioned, sort of on demand when ICBC receives complaints, or is there an ongoing pot of funding that the district might be able to access?
Mr. Horan?
Yes, through you, Chair. That's a great question. It's an annual program, so we have a regular contact with the road safety team at ICBC, and then every year there's a new discussion that happens when their new fiscal year starts to say, what are your ideas, Oakway? And then ICBC goes off after getting their input from all the different partners, different municipalities, and try to juggle what's high priority for them. And then, so that's, and a good example of that is in the past, the intersection at Foul Bay and Oak Bay Avenue, for example, was a perfect example of a project that we wanted to do in the district, and that ICBC was looking to fund. So they had proposed a cost sharing. I think it was $73,000 of the $100,000 budget. Of course, that was in the budget last year. It didn't happen because all our tenders came in above budget, so that was a procurement issue. So that's an example. And then what tends to happen sometimes is, kind of like what happened with us when we had to say to ICBC, our tenders came in too high. They end up having funding in the last few months of their year where they go back out to other municipalities to say, do you have something that you can do? And for us, this crosswalk was a good example of where we said, yes, we're ready to go. And it's relatively low preparation time to make it happen.
Councillor Zelka.
Thank you very much, Chair. Through you to staff. Appreciate the comments around the changes being proposed for Cranmore. I absolutely support that. I did have a comment, though, on the similar stretch related to Epworth. I've noticed some concerns, both as a driver and as a pedestrian, at the crosswalk, and it's now more recent interactions with the fact that there's a merging lane just before for traffic that is heading eastbound. Two lanes are merging into one just before that particular crosswalk, and I was wondering whether staff was considering either moving that crosswalk, maybe even just across the street, or possibly moving the merging lane just beyond it, in some ways to remove the apparent contradiction between passengers who are busy looking behind them, seeing if they can move over while there's potentially a person in front of them. So that was question one. Number two was possibly be interesting to know what the crash statistics look like along there at some point in the near future, if some information could be provided. I'm sure you're doing normal reviews, but it'd be useful to know how it's going with our major changes that have been in that particular corridor. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Haran, specific to the Epworth crossing?
Through you, Chair, the back when so this would be, as I think for a second, in the fall of 2017 when staff brought the first options for bike lanes along that stretch. I was committee of the whole, and this is the first exposure to the council and the community to say this is the plans or the availability of what we think we might want to do along that stretch for bike lanes. Some residents nearby started raising their concerns to say, hey, we have issues with traffic. So the residents of what I would call Florence and Epworth, there's a group of individuals there who raised their concerns at the time, which we acknowledged and kind of split off as a separate project to deal with related to their concerns. And so the concerns were being raised even before the bike lanes were installed, and it had to do with vehicles finding ways that need to get from the high school away or from away to the high school rather than taking Foul Bay Road to Cadbro Bay Road, finding other ways, Haltane and Florence and Epworth, to get in and out. So quieter streets were not as quiet as they had intended to be. So this issue has been taken separately as a project where we've engaged the residents to find out some of the ideas and wants and desires for improvement. And now we're in the stage of assessing how traffic has changed after the bike lanes were constructed, and then deciding on some of the options going forward to make some improvements. So this is now in the hopper of potential future projects, costed, and then does it meet the needs, and how does it fit in terms of safety and priorities across the district.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
That was
Haran.
the first question.
The second was just about, are we collecting statistics and data for crashes? And I would also suggest both bike and pedestrian and vehicle crashes in that area.
So ICBC does collect all that data, and we have access to that data. And we use that information, crash and injuries data, as part of our prioritization of what our projects are going to be or what they're going to be in the future. But I can certainly we can certainly provide that information for council.
Thank you. Any other questions? Before I take the motion, actually, maybe we can get a motion on the table. I just have one question.
I'll move the recommendation.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. My question is just related to the specifics of the work being proposed here, Mr. Haran. Is there? I know some of that complaint in there, especially on winter nights, is that it's quite dim. So is there any inclusion or looking at the lighting of that crosswalk? And also curious whether the paint being used for that is the higher visibility, higher reflective paint, which I know requires pretty decent paving underneath it.
Through you, Chair, at this time, the cost estimates and the scope of the project is strictly around pedestrian activated flashing lights that look very similar to the ones that were installed at Brighton across Foul Bay Road. So there's no intention to adjust the paint or to change the street lighting. The idea is, as the pedestrian walks up, pushes a button, and then we have bright flashing lights to tell the drivers, hey, someone's waiting to cross. Okay,
thank you. We have a motion on the table. Any other questions, comments? Or I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. We now have the minutes of Oakway Advisory Planning Commission. Usually we receive these minutes for information. The mover. Seconder, thank you. Are there any comments, discussion? Councillor Patterson and the Councillor Ney.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I note in the minutes that there is a checklist that it is referred to on one of the applications within the minutes. So I just ask that these minutes reflect that the checklist referred to in the APC minutes has not yet been reviewed by council. Thank you.
Are we able to do that in our minutes? Okay, thank you. We can do that. I think it is an important point because it might indicate that they're done. Councillor Ney and then Councillor Green.
If we're going to do that, because I did have a comment about the checklist, so I'm not going to bring it up now, because if we're going to see it, I can make the comment then.
Okay.
Okay.
Councillor Green.
Thank you. And I'm following on the comments of Councillors Patterson and Ney. My suggestion is that we defer the checklist to the process of when we review our committees and commissions for efficiencies, that we have that discussion at that time. I too have comments about the checklist, but there really isn't any point in talking about them tonight. But I think I'm wondering if they would fit better in the process of reviewing the mandates of committees and commissions. That's perhaps a question as well. Thank you.
I think we can take that one a little offline, because those guidelines are things that they're sort of working on, I believe, and they're going to sort of, the idea is that they'll sort of tweak them and bring them back to council for consideration. And Mr. Anderson or Ms. Jensen, maybe you could clarify, but I believe they're sort of using them right now in a sort of a beta form, and they'll bring them back to council. Is that a fair?
Yeah, that was a sort of a pilot single use of them. I would expect that we'd want to bring the procedures manual and checklist before council before we would fully apply. I mean, as noted, it hasn't been endorsed or approved by council at this point.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Zelka?
Thank you, Chair. That essentially was a bit of my question. Just wanted to know about this famous procedures manual that I've been asking you about for quite some time now. And I'm very pleased to hear that it sounds like it's on its way, is what I'm sort of reading between the lines. So I wanted to ask, through you, Chair, with your staff, are we waiting for the reset of the Advisory Planning Commission's mandate, or are we going to be seeing the procedure manuals first, or which is it, chicken or is it egg? Thank you.
I can give this, I don't know if this is Mr. Anderson, is this a question that I should pass over to you?
Yeah, certainly, Your Worship. I was going to concur with Councillor Green's suggestion that perhaps as part of the committee review, it would be appropriate to bring the procedures and an associated checklist into that discussion, and then have that emerge and come before council in I guess, a finalized form.
All right, sounds good.
I think it's egg is the answer.
Thank you. I very much appreciate an omelette, if you don't mind. If you don't, if it's possible to have a sense, is this going to be after budgeting? Is it going to be summertime? Is it going to be Christmas time? Just some idea, please.
I'll throw that to Ms. Varela.
Thank you, Your Worship. So as part of strategic planning, this discussion will hit Council's radar. Subsequently, we will see refined department work plans, but you're also going to get a quick glimpse of those on the 23rd when we talk about the priorities. It's very draft right now, so we welcome this discussion after the 23rd. I think we'll all have more insight then. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you. Do we need to receive the correspondence?
Yes, please, Your Worship.
All right, so we just need a motion to receive the additional correspondence.
Moved. Second.
And seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you. Item number 11, new business and verbal reports. First up, new business. Is there any new business? CRD update. Not a lot to bring forward. We of significant interest, but just both the first meeting of both the Finance and Governance Committee and the Hospitals and Housing Committees have met now, and there's a fair bit of work going on both from a financial and governance side. Probably of most interest to this organization is the Hospitals and Housing Committee, which I'm been appointed as Vice Chair of, and that will be considering all aspects of things like Oakway Lodge lands and so forth as they come through to make recommendations. So it's there will be a lot of interesting discussions that come through those two areas. And do you want to go ahead? Yeah, sure, yeah. Councillor.
Well, I was just wondering if you could update us around the meeting you had with about the ENN rail corridor. Is that appropriate here?
Yeah, there has been no meeting yet. So staff have been meeting with the province to look at it, but we haven't had an update yet from the.
But you had a mayor's meeting, no? On the ENN corridor? No? I thought I saw that in the paper. No, there was just a letter written and circulated. Yeah, I think that's about it for the CRD pieces. So then we're on to just the verbal reports. So maybe let's go around this way to keep it simple. Councillor Zelka.
Thank you very much, Chair. I wanted to report out on the CRD Water Commission. There's a bit of activity. initiated by the province to look at an emergency alternate route relating to the Malahat Highway blockage that occurred a few weeks ago. And unfortunately, they're looking at possibly the Sioux Hills Wilderness Park, which is right next to the water reservoir. And that has raised some strong concern. The CRD Water Commission staff is at the province request starting a little bit of analysis, but it hasn't come back to the commission yet for a vote. But there was definitely murmurs of disapproval. And I would, I don't know whether you are, but I'm getting lots of emails saying it's a no-go. However, I can say that certainly I was very pleased, and I want to congratulate the mayor for that letter that went through relating to the ENN corridor. Thank you so much, Mayor, for taking the initiative to do that, along with all the other mayors, to support this alternate route to the Malahat known as rail. So I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. And I can give a brief update on that. So just that is going to the Water Commission. Ultimately, it has to come to the CRD board for any approval. So that is outside the delineated responsibilities to the water district. But obviously, their report will come back with a fair bit of weight. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things to report on. I attended, along with Councillor Appleton last week, the Community Association of Oak Bay sponsored they hosted their meeting with the Victoria Foundation representative presenting the vital signs, which is now available. So for anybody who hasn't received their copies are now available, and it was an interesting presentation. Lots of questions from members of the audience that attended the event, and unfortunately, the weather was a little chilly, so it wasn't as full as we would have hoped for. But nevertheless, it was interesting information to hear about, learn about what the some of the studies that they have been conducting in the region. And it will certainly serve useful, I think, to us as we're going through our strategic planning to some of the things that we saw. The other thing that I would like to highlight is that Oak Bay celebrates BC Heritage Week with its first kickoff presentation. Carolyn Duncan will be certainly doing a wonderful presentation on this. It takes place on February 22nd at 2 p.m. in the afternoon, and it's a story of St. Patrick Street with authors Robert Taylor and Janet Morningstar. So if you have not yet reserved your spot, you can do that through the Greater Victoria Public Library. I understand that tickets are going fast, so please get your booking in early. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Green, did you have anything to update?
As I mentioned, I attended my first Oak Bay Tourism Committee meeting. The BIA meeting that was scheduled this week has been postponed due to bad weather. And I also, it's gone. There was something I was going to mention and it's gone. I'm sorry. If it comes back, I'll put my hand up again. Thank you.
No worries. Councillor Braithwaite.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to let everyone know that I will be sending out a save the date for the Young Exceptional Star Awards for this year, which is going to be happening on April 30th at the Oak Bay Beach Hotel. I have invited the Lieutenant Governor to come, so I'm hoping that she will be available. I'll keep you posted on that. And Councillor Appleton and I will be going through all of the nominations when they come in, and we'll have some tough choices to make. So, but if you do know any wonderful youth within Oak Bay that go to school or live in Oak Bay that you would like to nominate, that are grade 6 to grade 10, please go on the website, the Parks and Recreation website, and you'll see the nomination form there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Braithwaite. Councillor Appleton.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll just briefly update in my capacity as Library Board Trustee. For those that aren't aware, all new incoming library trustees get to go on a very cool and engaging event, which is the Tour of Branches. So all incoming new trustees get taken around on a tour of both the branches and also a lot of the technical facilities that are provided in the library system. And so we've visited a number of branches, including the new James Bay branch. I can't really say enough about just the expertise and the professionalism of the folks that work in the library system. I think when I was speaking to them, what I communicated to them was that we all know that our library system is really well supported, that we've got one of the most successful library systems of any urban center in Canada. But I think it would be easy for that system and the folks that work for that system to rest on their laurels and just sort of sit back and enjoy that success. But they're constantly innovating. There's constant new programming coming out. The digital presence of the library is exceptional, unbelievable. If you haven't visited a different branch, our branch is fantastic. If you haven't visited another branch, especially the James Bay branch, which just won a design award for its interior design, I would really strongly suggest that you do so. We're very, very fortunate to have the library system that we have, and I came away with a huge amount of information and an appreciation for what we're provided with. So, and I know that the folks from the board will be coming to present to council here in fairly short order, and looking forward to seeing that.
I'm going to go back to Councillor Green and then Councillor Nate.
I just remembered, I'm sorry. I think it's the temperature in this room. It's awfully cold, and it affects my memory. But speaking of cold, there is the Coldest Night of the Year walk on February the 23rd. I know that this council received an email from Our Place Society CEO Don Evans, so that takes place if you're able to participate. It is a walk that occurs across Canada and raises funds to help the displaced and the homeless and vulnerable in our communities. So that was the only other event that I was aware of, and I'm sorry that I missed that the first time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Yeah, I'm signed up to do it with my son, so it should be a good event. Councillor Nate?
Yeah, no, I was just going to give you an update regarding the issuing of grants funding from the CRD Arts Commission, to which Oak Bay makes a substantial contribution. So there's numerous grant initiatives for various kinds of organizations, and not all of them necessarily have to have an arts focus. So it's worth looking at. I distribute it to council and to Parks and Culture, yeah, it's worth having a look at. And one of the things actually that I've been paying attention to as I've been sitting on that commission is that there is perhaps an opportunity for Oak Bay to set up an arts council that has been done in other communities, and there's a funding grant there that would do that, and it could be a way to localize and bring community groups in, together to do the works of publicizing, marketing, and bringing arts groups together. So it's just an idea. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, thank you everyone for that. We have item number 11 here, development variance permit application 638 Beach Drive. I see a few people here for that. We have one piece of correspondence which we already received. I should just double check my procedure notes here on this one. We have, I guess we'll just start off with questions to staff or to the applicant. Are there any questions on this? This is one we came to Committee of the Whole previously, 638 Beach. I'm not seeing any questions at this point, so I'm going to invite the members of the public who wish to speak to this application.
Your Worship,
yes?
we should have a motion to give consideration to the award of the development permit and then invite people up to speak.
Okay, so we'll have a motion on the table.
Make that motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak to the application at 638 Beach? Seeing none, I'll come back to this table. Is there any other discussion to happen here? We have a motion on the table. Councillor Zelka.
Thank you, Chair. I will still be voting against this particular application, since, in my opinion, it doesn't meet with my objectives around the Heritage Revitalization Agreement that is the basis of this multi-lot development. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Seeing no other discussion, I'll just call the question then. All those in favour? Opposed? Councillor Zelka opposed. Thank you very much. That does conclude our meeting. Just need a motion to adjourn.
Adjournment.
Oh, sorry. Actually, one other thing I was before we adjourn. So have a move adjournment.
I'll retract that.
No, it's okay. You can have the motion, but I just I do want to just make a point of pointing out there is a citizen budget that's coming out, and so this is something that was done last year, and I should have made this in my mayor's remarks, and I apologize. But basically, it's a tool, an online tool that is going to be available to the public to provide feedback for Oakway. And we did it last year, and this is the second year it's been running. So it should provide both an educational opportunity for residents to get a sense of what we can and can't do inside of a budget, but also to give some feedback to us in terms of priorities and ideas and concerns. So that that'll form part of our information package going forward. So. Is that sufficient, Ms. Varela?
Your Worship, so that is going live Friday, February 15th, and it will run through Friday, March 15th. Residents can log on at home, or if assistance is required, they can call or drop by Municipal Hall.
Councillor Green?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor, to Ms. Varela, and that will be well advertised on our website and in other venues, formats. Thank you.
The answer is yes. I can say that. Okay, I have a motion to adjourn on the table. All those in favour? Opposed? And